Hey everybody, this is Robert Burke. Welcome to episode number 37 of When to Play. And today we're going to be talking about a little card game called Three Dragon Ante, Emperor's Gambit. This is a game by Wizards of the Coast. As you can see on the top here, it is a Dungeons and Dragons themed card game. And this is actually the second edition or expansion or second version of the game. The original game is just called Three Dragon Ante. That game is not in print and it's very expensive to find right now. I think I saw some copies that were about $70 or something on eBay. This one, however, is available for the $18 or $19, something reasonable. And you can still pick this up. The difference is the dragons are different between the two different games. The cards, some of the powers are different between the two different decks. Some of the rules have been tweaked a little bit. But basically it's the same game. The rules are mostly the same between the two. And they're interchangeable. So you can put both decks together if you want, or arrange your own decks using both of the different games together. The box comes with 72 cards, and they're these kind of unusually cut cards. You'll see the shape there is kind of neat, and that's the back. And they're longer and thinner. The quality isn't the best. It's not horrible, but they're a little bit thin, but they're long. They're long and thinner than normal cards, so they have a tendency to bend more if you handle them a lot. And in this game you are playing cards a lot, so it is gonna wear out over time, and I think this shape makes it pretty difficult to even find sleeves for them, if you even can. So that's something to keep in mind as well. The box isn't the best quality either. It's kind of like a large tuck box. It's got this lid on the top that flips open and is held just by a little plastic lip there, or cardboard lip. Inside is this box, and this is how the cards sit inside the box. So the box is much bigger than it needs to be. I don't know if that was done for marketing reasons, to make it appear bigger than it actually is, but the cards fit in there and then they go inside the box. And in the rule book, I don't know how it was in there because I can't figure out how to get it back in now. So this I actually keep separate from the game. The rule book is a nice little booklet. It's very well laid out, and the kind of idea of Three Dragon Ante, before I get into how it plays, is you could play this as a D&D character. So if you're a dungeon master, you can introduce this game as a themed game that their characters could play. And as you know, your characters are going to be in a tavern at some point in time if you play Dungeons and Dragons or Pathfinder. And the idea of this game was to put it in the hands of players so they could have their characters actually role play a real pub tavern game in that D&D universe. And it does that very well. It's a very pokerish. It kind of has a gambling. It does have a gambling element to it, and I'll go over that just in a minute. And the artwork and graphic design on the cards are very kind of primitive. They look really good. The artwork, and it looks old. The cards look old and antique, kind of what you would expect to see in a tavern. If you were a dwarf and you were an adventurer in a tavern about to play a card game, these kind of look exactly what you would visualize in your head that you would play. So that's kind of neat. The game actually takes it a little bit further. Inside the rule book, you will find a bunch of little different tables. So you can combine, it will tell you which cards to include if you are combining the two different decks, and it will give you a name of the game that uses those particular cards in the deck, and it gives you a little bit of background about how that game evolved in the Dungeons and Dragons universe. So you can really go that gives you a kind of foundation to really give a historical background for this card game that you can introduce into your role-playing campaigns. But you don't need to be a role player to play Three Dragon Ante. It stands alone, and you can play it as the card game that it is. It has a good set of rules. The rules are very self-explanatory. It's very easy to pick up. It's a beer and pretzels game. There is no doubt about it. The mechanics really kind of fit into the kind of game you would expect a dwarf to be playing in a tavern. It's not a serious strategy game. So if you're, really want a lot of strategy in your games, then you're not going to find it here. It's a card game that does depend on a lot of random elements, but it is, in my opinion, a ton of fun to play. One thing you are going to need is some sort of chips or money, because you are going to be betting in the game. The game does not include chips or tokens. So I use my good old, my poker chips that I use for poker games. They work just fine. You could use nickels and dimes and quarters. You could use plastic chips. You could use, I know there's been a lot of Kickstarters lately that have created metal coins, which would work great for this and probably be the most thematic thing you could use if you were using it in a role-playing campaign. But you do need chips. And so what's going to happen is you're going to take from 2 to, as many players really as you want, especially if it says 2 to 6 on the box. But I think you could play with more than that if you were combining more than one deck pretty easily. Because every round, it's called a Gambit, every player is only going to be playing 3 cards, and they're only going to start with 6 cards. So what you're going to do is everybody's going to have a starting set amount of money, and it's going to be 10 gold or 10 money, whatever you want to call it, for each player. Every player gets that amount. So if you have 4 players, every player will get 40 gold. If you have 6 players, every player will get 60 gold. So it's just 10 times the number of players, and every player starts with that amount. You play the game until one person runs out of money completely at the end of a Gambit. When that happens, the game is over, and the player with the most money wins. You could actually play this with real money too, if you are the gambling type, and I haven't done that yet, but I think it would be a ton of fun to do it that way. Okay, so once every player that's playing has their starting money, everybody is going to be dealt 6 cards to start with. And these cards, as you'll see, this one here is a mortal card. There are good dragons and evil dragons of different colors, and there are mortals. And they are numbered from 1 to 13. So you'll see that mortal here is a 10, and he's got a special ability here, and he actually has an ante ability too, which is a different thing. That ability only comes into play when the card is in the pot as an ante. And I'll talk about that a little bit later. But on your turn, you are going to play 1 card from your hand. And you're going to do that 3 times until you have 3 cards in front of you, and that's going to be called your flight. All right, but before you start playing, you're going to have to pick 1 card from your hand to ante up. And you're going to do that simultaneously. Whoever has the highest number card when you ante is going to get to go first. And going first is a benefit in this game, because how it works is whoever has the highest sum total of their 3 cards at the end of the Gambit is going to win the pot. However, if you play a card that is a lower number than the player to your right who has just played a card, the card they just played, if you play a card that's a lower number, it triggers the ability for that card. And sometimes all the time, these are beneficial to you. Sometimes they will let you steal gold from other players or take gold from the pot. They tend to be more the evil dragons deal with taking gold. The good dragons tend to more with getting more cards, where you can steal cards from other players, or take cards from the ante, or just draw cards from the deck. So if that thing triggers, you're going to have some special ability that you can do as soon as you play that card. If it's equal to or lower, actually. So if this was the neighbor to my right's card that he just played was a 10. If I played a card that was 10 or lower, I get the special ability of that card. If I played a card that was higher than a 10, then I don't get that special ability. It does not trigger. However, you win the pot by having the highest total sum at the end of the round when everybody's played their 3 cards. So you've got that kind of decision point when you're looking at your hand. You're really trying to determine, well, I can't win this pot, so I'm going to try to, really milk it for all the money or cards I can this round, or I'm going to make it difficult on the leader. There are things you can do, but you really are dependent on the cards you get and the cards that other people play, right? So if you're the kind of person who really has to have a lot of strategy in a game, you're not going to like it. If you like lighter games that spur a lot of interaction, that are fun and raucous, then you are going to probably like this game, and you should definitely try it. It's a very good beer and pretzels game, in my opinion. All right, so if you are a poker fan, if you like to play poker, you may really enjoy this game. However, if you are a serious poker player who really knows how to bluff people, then this is not going to do it for you, because in Three Dragon Ante, although there's coins and you're betting, right, and there's an ante and you're stealing money and you're trying to win that pot, there really is no opportunity to bluff. You are never able to raise the pot or bluff people out of the pot or away from the pot. That mechanic does not exist here. So if you're looking for something like that, you are not going to find it with Three Dragon Ante. It's a little bit lighter than that. But the special abilities kind of fill the void of not being able to bluff to make it more interesting and to make it fun. And those special abilities really drive a lot of interaction, right? Because you're stealing money from other players, you're looking at what they're playing, and there's a couple other special hands you can get that are very helpful. If you get 3 cards of the same color, that is a colored flight. And what happens when you get a colored flight is every player has to pay you in gold the middle number of those 3 cards that you've played. So if I played a 3, a 5, and a 10 purple, then the middle card is a 5. Every other player has to pay me 5 gold. So a colored flight is a really good flight to go for. Now, you can try and, you're kind of dependent on the luck of the draw there, but there are ways you can get cards out of the ante or steal cards from other players. So you can improve your odds to get a colored flight like that, but it is still, I don't want to make it sound like there's too much strategy there. There is strategy there, but there's not too much, because you're more dependent on luck of the draw and the random element of the game. It really is more of a game of chance. I would say 80%, maybe 20% strategy here. So hopefully that will help you decide if it's something that you might enjoy or not. Now, there's also something called a strength flight. And this is probably the best hand that you can play. If you play a flight of 3 dragons that have the same number, like if I had 3 sevens, I would have a strength flight. As soon as I play that, I take that number of gold from the pot. So I get 7 gold from the pot. And I get to take 3 of the ante cards from the pot, no matter what they are. So at that point, if I can get a strength flight, I'm able to improve my hand for the next round, because you carry your cards over to the next round. So I might set myself up to get a strength flight or a color flight on the next round. Or I might take high number dragons that are in the ante so I can try to win the pot next round, even if I'm not winning it this round. So because it goes from round to round, that gives it a bit more strategy and hand management options for you, because if you know you can't win that pot this round, you can save your larger cards and try to build yourself up for a future round. So that's a good thing. But again, I'm going to stick to this is probably 80% luck and 20% strategy. All right, so every player one at a time with the starting player. The starting player is going to play 1 card If you're the starting player, your power is going to automatically activate because there was no card played to your right. So that's the benefit of winning the ante and being the starting player. You could play a high card and get that special ability if you're the starting player. If you're not the starting player, it's going to be hard for you to play an 11 or a 12 or 13 and trigger the ability, right? You're probably not going to get the ability, although if you have those cards, you have a good chance of winning the pot, right? So every player, one at a time, one card at a time around the table until everybody has played 3 cards. At that point, you're going to look, everybody's going to sum up the numbers on their 3 cards. Whoever has the highest total sum wins that pot or wins that gambit. The rounds are called gambits in this game. So then every player, you're going to check to see if the game is over. If any player does not have any gold left, the game is over, and the player with the most gold wins. However, you can go into debt in this game too. If you run out of money halfway through a gambit, you can go into debt and basically write IOUs with the hopes that you are going to win the pot and be able to pay your debts. So if it goes around and you go in debt, and it happened to a game we just played last night. The game was ending. We thought it was over because somebody ran out of money and he went into a bunch of debt, but he won the pot. So he got the money, he paid off all his debts and had money left. The game keeps going. Now, there's variants in the rule book where you can play just a time game. They really kind of leave it open for how you want to play the game, but the standard game is when somebody runs out of money and can't repay their debts or doesn't win the pot, then it's over and the player with the most gold wins. So after that, after you determine who won a gambit, you determine if the game is over. If it's not over, everybody draws 2 cards, and then everybody antes again with an ante card, and you do the whole thing over again. So that's basically how the game plays. And like I said, it drives a lot of interaction between players. You're playing these cards. You're trying to figure out, well, he's played 2 7s. Does he really have another 7? Or you're doing the math, trying to figure out, maybe you have 3 high cards and that you could possibly win. But there is a little bit of bluffing. You know, if I have a 10 and a 10 and a 9, and somebody has played a 10 and a 9, you know, are they holding back an 11 to beat me, or can I win the pot and should I go for it, or should I keep that high card for the next round? So there are some cool little decision points like that, and the special abilities make it really fun. And even though you're just playing 1 card on your turn, you're really trying to, there's that decision that you have to make. Am I going to play a high card and try to win this pot, or am I going to play a lower card so I can trigger an ability and get something beneficial? And sometimes you can. You know, if somebody to your right plays a 1, then you can't trigger ability. You know, then you're kind of hosed unless you're trying to go for the pot. So it's a fun game. It's nothing that is too deep. It's nothing that's too serious. But like I said, it fits with what it's trying to do, and that's represent a game that might really be played by a bunch of dwarves and some elves and some humans in a tavern right before they're ready to go on an adventure, or maybe after they've gone on an adventure. Maybe they're playing Three Dragon Ante to see who wins that magic item. Right, so that's a good way you can use this game if you are a DM of a fantasy game. You know, if the players can't decide who's going to, you know, win that special, you know, magic weapon, have them play Three Dragon Ante for it. So it's a neat game, but let's look on Board Game Geek, as we usually do, and see what people have said about it. Now, we're going to look at people who've rated it really high, and we're going to look at some comments from people who have rated it really low, and hopefully that helps you get a sense of whether this might be a game for you. But in my opinion, if you really need strategy, if you don't like games without much strategy, then you should stay away from this. If you like to have good beer and pretzels games in your collection, This is definitely something you need to try because it's a ton of fun as a light card game, and it runs really, really quick. The actual game, if you play it the standard way, can run long if people keep staying in, but it plays so fast and you're having such a good time. I don't find that the length is an issue, and games can end really quick too. So the length of the game is is really variable. Now, like I said, there's variance. So if you only have an hour, you could say we're playing for 1 hour, and whoever has the most gold at an hour wins. So it's got some flexibility that way too, which is good. All right, so let's look at some of the people who've rated this low, or look at the comments people have left who have rated it very low. Now, surprisingly, nobody's rated it a 1. Usually, every game, somebody rates it a 1 because they hate it for some reason so much that they give it the lowest rating that they possibly can. Nobody has. The lowest rating here is a 3, so I don't know if that is a good thing, but nobody hates it so much that they would rate it a 1. So Blazing Apostle writes, he rated a 3. Says, glad to have the update. However, my gaming group didn't like it at all. One called it too abstract and a type of Magic the Gathering-esque clone. Well, I'm going to stop right there for a second. This is nothing like Magic the Gathering at all. So I don't know what game this person was playing in his gaming group, but it is nothing like Magic the Gathering. It is a lot more like poker than Magic the Gathering. So very different games. He also continues to say, another who won most games was just stunningly bored by it all. Myself, I like it. I like some of the chaos of it, especially the ante cards. But in the end, I can't see this being asked for again at the group meet. A pity for me, but as they say, win some, lose some. Then Mr. Bunny says, low rating due to a dragon theme. Otherwise, an okay game. So, I don't know. Who doesn't like dragons? That's crazy. Why would you rate a game low? Because it's about dragons. Dragons are probably the coolest thing ever invented. So, I don't understand that. David says, rated at a 4, says, some interesting ideas with the anti-effects and how the highest card gives first play of the next round, but lower cards allow you to use your ability, plus a built-in incentive to never deplete your hand, but it is still a game where you see what cards you have and optimize each play in a trivial, hope you don't have X manner. So, yeah, if you don't like not having control, if you have got to have strategy in your games, if your gaming group are, like heavier games and never want to play anything light, then this is not something you want to play. If once in a while you like to bust out something light as a filler and relax and not have to think too hard and just enjoy each other's company and have some drinks and have something going on that's fun and create some interaction, then this definitely fits the bill. If you are in a role-playing group, and especially if you are a DM, I think this is a great addition to your arsenal. When players have been playing for 6 hours and you're on, an RPG binge, and they're in the tavern, you could break this out and really break it up and bring it down and have a little bit of fun right in the middle of your role-playing experience and have them do it in character. It can be very much a lot of fun. So let's see who rated it a 10. We have 110, but he doesn't really tell us anything. The only person who really leaves a valid comment, there's a lot of just 10s with no comments at all. Then we have Kat, says, a great expansion to the original with some interesting twists added to the game, some extra mortal cards who have a great game-changing aspects, will bring some fun. And the anti-effects will also make you think twice about some of your old strategies. Now, the anti-effects, a lot of them people have been talking about that. Some of the cards have anti-effects that are listed in a different color on the card. If those cards ever come face up in the ante, then some effect happens. And sometimes, like there's one in particular that was really added a lot of fun. Is one of them was, instead of having whoever has the lowest total sum of 3 cards wins the ante instead of the highest. And the reason that's cool, because if that ante card comes up, people might be going low. But if somebody gets a card that lets them steal a card from the ante pile, or if they get that strength flight and can take 3 cards, if they take that card out, bam, it flips back. And those people who have been going low are not going to win the pot. The person who's high is going to win the pot. So the anti abilities are really kind of neat. And so I agree with that as well. Some minor problems in the new expansion: combining all of the original and expansion cards together will make it hard to get your color flights assembled. And when the purple dragons are put on the table, it's hard not to think that there's a mortal sitting there instead. So yeah, the mortals are a purple color. That's very similar to the purple dragons. And the colors can be hard to distinguish. It's not like a bright yellow and bright blue. It's like bronze and gray and steel and... so there's different textures on these corners as well as the color, so that helps, but it can be hard to distinguish, especially with people who don't have the best vision or are colorblind. So that is something to keep in mind as well. Robert says, went out and got the expansion after a few games, and it really went really well at my house. This has become our version of poker night. We sit around and play with both whole decks for hours. I know that's not in the rules, but it makes the game better in the long run. The only thing we need is proper coins to play with. The plastic pirate gold wears thin after a few dozen games. So he must be playing with plastic coins. I play with the plastic poker chips. But I think that is a really telling comment from Robert. This can, if you have a poker night with your buddies, if you're not even a gamer, if you just like poker, this game you could really enjoy because it brings it down a notch. Like I said, it eliminates the bluffing, but it's got that same kind of pokerish feeling where you're trying to win that pot and trying to steal money from other players. So if you like that kind of thing, definitely worth a try. So I hope this has helped you figure out if Three Dragon Ante Emperor's Gambit is something you might like to try. If you like Beer and Pretzels game, I give it a thumbs up. You need to try it. If you don't, if you need to have strategy, then it's not something you want. So my name is Robert Burke, and we'll be back again soon with episode 38. Thanks. Bye.